Duckweed lemna minor is commonly found in freshwater ponds or areas with standing water. Its ability to reproduce quickly makes it valuable in industry for food and feed. We observed that duckweed grows well in riverbanks around Bridgewater. Could this be due to salt concentration or any other factors? Some duckweed looks greener in some rivers than others, as an observation as well. So we came up with a question: why does duckweed do so well here near the mountains? Could it be a different salt preference or a different salt salinity?
According to Eula and Associates, macrophytes such as duckweed usually can't tolerate salinity above 50 parts per thousand. We're going to set four bowls up at different salinity levels to see if the duckweed prefers one over the other. We expect that duckweed has a preference of lower salinity, therefore, we should see the most duckweed growth in low salinity. The bowls were set at a null salt as a control, 5 zero point 0.5 parts per thousand, 10 parts per thousand, and 20 parts per thousand. Salinity for each level was created using parts per thousand scale, so a zero point 0.5 parts per thousand would equate to the grams of salt over the grams of water. 1 gram of salt and 2 liters of water then multiplied by 1,000 would yield a zero point 0.5 parts per thousand solution.
Our prediction is that duckweed will grow best in the zero point 0.5 parts per thousand solution. We placed 50 seeds in each fishbowl for 2 trials. We observed the bowls for a week and saw no growth in the 10 and 20 parts per thousand solutions. Since we are trying to measure the growth rate at different salinity levels, we made the switch to purchasing 500 adult buds of duckweed and observe overall growth and percent coverage.
The fish bowls going forward were used for mass and color interpretation, while four 4x4 grid containers were used to observe the percent cover.
After a couple of days later, there is now an observable difference in the color between the low and high concentrations, overall growth, and percent coverage.
Pictured are the tanks at the end of the 5-day experiment, and we can see a large color difference. The control and zero point 0.5 parts per thousand are just as green from the start, while the 10 parts per thousand tank is mostly lime green and yellow. The 20 parts per thousand tank is mostly white and yellow. The zero point 0.5 parts per thousand tank was the healthiest and darkest green. The same color differences were observed in the grid containers.
The graph shows the percent coverage of duckweed through 5 days of experimental testing. Initially, all salinity levels started at 19%, with about three of the squares covered. As the days went on, the 0 ppt and the 10 ppt almost followed a same type of curve. However, the 10 ppt slowly lagged behind the 0 ppt. zero point 0.5 ppt had the greatest coverage overall, taking off after the third day and putting a distance between the other salinity levels. The 20 ppt showed no growth at all and stayed roughly three squares of the entirety of the container.
We scooped the duckweed from the fish bowls of trial 1 and 2. Then we left them out to air dry on a filter paper for 48 hours. We then used a balance to measure the mass in grams for each bowl. And then the graph shows the average dry mass for both trials and the different salinity levels. The control in the zero point 0.5 parts per thousand had the greatest average weight compared to the other salinity levels. An assumption can be made that duckweed can grow in well in zero salinity. However, zero point 0.5 parts per thousand show the greatest average dry mass weight.
Overall, our results showed that duckweed grows best in lower salinity environments rather than higher salinity environments. A study done by Femina and her associates found that growth rates at high nutrient concentrations of duckweed showed low growth, while the opposite was true when there were low concentrations of chemicals, duckweed grew at higher rates. Bake in 2021 listed that duckweed has an ability to absorb chemicals in extreme environments, which can help with human waste and pollution in our environment. Overall, duckweed is a super plant that can be used to help treat eutrophication of water by absorbing phosphorus and nitrogen compounds within the water and the soil.